Hello everyone, welcome back to Stock Spy. When investors hear about Palantir's massive validation, the skepticism is almost automatic. Isn't this just another overhyped stock? Or haven't we seen this before? And it's true. History is full of high PE stocks that looked unstoppable until they just fizzled out. Think Pets.com during the dot-com bubble, or 3D Systems during the 3D printing hype, or GoPro during its post-IPO craze. All of them started with sky-high expectation and ended up in great disappointments. So the big question here is Palantir destined to follow the same path? Or is it built differently? Let's start by remembering the few most infamous fizzle stocks. Pets.com, 1999. At the height of the dot-com boom, it had an incredible hype with no sustainable business model. Within a year, the company went bankrupt. Investors lost almost everything. 3D Systems in 2012 to 2014. It was the poster child of 3D printing. Analysts even said that every household would own a 3D printer. Valuations soared, but the technology never went mainstream and the stock collapsed over 80%. GoPro, after a 2014 IPO. Initially, it was valued like a tech innovator. In the end, it was just really a hardware company. When sales slowed and competitors caught up, the stock fell more than 90%. Last in our list is Plug Power, another example. A hydrogen fuel cell play that's been high multiple times over the decade. But consistent profitability never arrived, and its stock has gone through repeated boom and bust cycles. So what's the lesson here? High valuation without sustainable business model almost always ends badly. Now let's compare these names with Palantir side by side. This will help us see why Palantir truly stands apart and also where the risks remain. Starting with the revenue basis. Fizzle stories often had weak or speculative revenue. Pets.com had none. GoPro had just one product line. 3D Systems relied on hype more than real adoptions, which is in contrast to Palantir, who's generating over $2 billion in annual revenue, growing in both government contracts and commercial sector. This is in vaporware, it's real business. Now the profitability. Most of the fizzles names never became profitable, and that's what killed them. Palantir, on the other hand, had already achieved profitability and consistently generates free cash flow. This makes it much harder to dismiss as just another hype stock. The consumer stickiness. Fizzle companies lack customer lock-ins. So if you didn't like GoPro, you could switch to another camera or 3D printer. Easy to replace. Or just we could avoid it altogether. Palantir is just the opposite of it. Its software powers critical defense, intelligence, and enterprise operations. Once it's embedded, the switching costs are extremely high. And there is a market tailwind. Fizzle stories often ride on hypes. .com, 3D printing, customer gadgets, etc. Once the hype fades, so did the demand. Palantir, in contrast, sits at the heart of AI, big data, and digital transformation. The trends are far deeper, broader, and more durable. Now let's look at the competitive mode. Fizzle name often had weak modes. GoPro could be easily copied. 3D printing companies had no real differentiation. Palantir's moat lies in the decades of government relationships, proprietary technology, and a deep software integration. This is not something a competitor can easily replicate. Valuation risks. Now, here is where Palantir isn't so different. Just like the fizzle names, Palantir trades at a very high multiple. If growth slows even slightly, the stock could be punished. Investors must acknowledge that the volatility is part of the ride. To end with the outcomes, all those fizzle names, as I mentioned before, collapsed 70 to 95% in a few years' time. Palantir's outcome here is still uncertain. But based on the fundamentals, it looks far better positions than those in the past failures. So what's the takeaway? Yes, Palantir is a high PE stock. Yes, the risks are real, but unlike pets.com, GoPro or 3D systems, Palantir has real revenue, sticky customers, profitability and exposure to AI. This is one of the biggest technology shift of our time. Skeptics will always point out to history's fizzle stories. But if Palantir continues to execute, it could prove to be not another pets.com, but rather one of the success stories look back on years from now. For bulls, the bet is simple. Palantir is not a fad, but a future cornerstone of AI-driven economy. Thanks a lot for watching.